Hey everybody, what's up? Michael Dean Jarman here, Juggernaut, aka Diesel, aka MJ, aka the Trauma Geek, the Sports Psychology Geek, the Corruption Geek, but you know me as Govey Wovey. And this is the video of all videos, because we get to finally reveal some pretty serious dark networks of corruption here in Utah that exemplify the patterns that seem to be perpetuated through that corrupt organization known as the AFCCnet.org through 30 chapters or so in states and in other ways in every state in the country. I am making this in particular because of the local companies involved and the local people who need to hear this, who care so much about our community here in Utah and who do so much for it, and they have no idea of this these dark networks of imposters and the corruption that they do and the pain and terror and horrors that they inflict upon Americans and Utahns through the courthouses. This includes people like the Larry H. Miller family and Gail Miller, who is a fearless fighter for human rights here in Utah, who will stand up for human rights no matter what, and who has donated so many countless millions to the community to better the community, as well as families like the Eccles through their work at the University of Utah. That's ECCLES, Eccles, as well as the Huntsman family, who has the Huntsman Cancer Institute, which continues to make headway in that area, but also the Huntsman Mental Health Institute, where they have spent hundreds of millions of dollars to try and further the research into mental health. And while they are doing that, we continue to make leaps and bounds in other ways as well. But what's important to note is that all these hundreds of millions of dollars are being spent to better the community for everyone to prosper in life and happiness and in their avenues of talent and ability and profession. Yet they don't know that there are these terrors happening in the courthouses, these holy terrors. It's important to be aware of this, because it doesn't make sense to spend that kind of money while the real psychosis is happening in the courthouses. And it is a psychosis. It involves judges, commissioners, guardian ad litems, psychologists, mediators, third-party supervisors, the judiciary, the Utah State Bar, and it's the same models in every state and every city. These imposters are committing treason. As nationalistic as that might sound, that's just something they try to hide behind, but it is not just nationalistic sensationalism. These imposters are committing treason because they hide behind the American flag to commit these terrors on innocent U.S. citizens. They fly this flag in front of their courthouses and in their courtrooms to trick Americans into their dark schemes. And we know that these schemes include intentionally antagonizing parents. They do this by enabling a broken or vulnerable or drug addict parent to do terrifying things to the other parent at the children's expense until that other parent is either dead from suicide, or if that doesn't happen, they then work on other terrors of framing the other parent. That includes targeting, exploiting, blaming, framing, alienating, and on and on. And it is effective, and it has been effective for more than 40 years. But it's just in 2024 now that we've been able to start putting these patterns together from coast to coast and expose it. And these dark networks of imposters do this so that when one parent dies, they can add tens of thousands of dollars to that dead parent's bill and take it all, and no one can stop them. And then they can immediately turn on the other parent, the broken parent, the drug addict parent, the naive parent that they enabled, and say, well, now all this time you've committed all these crimes that the judge is interested in pursuing now, and so we're going, and then they monger that parent into suicide or self-medicating with drugs or alcohol or framing them for jail. And they do that so they can then take the children. And they do this because there are incentives signed back in like 20 years ago by Bill Clinton that incentivize states to do adoptions. But these dark networks of imposters have realized that by forcing adoptions and creating excuses to force adoptions, they can take advantage of these reimbursements that can add up to anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 to $80,000 or more per child. So if there's a couple that has 3 or 4 children and one of them gets groomed by one of these imposter attorneys, that can equate to hundreds of thousands of dollars that can be stolen from the feds and then distributed through these dark networks. This is just one thing they do. So here in Utah, it has been exposed that Judge Robert Faust, in collusion with Commissioner Russell Manasse, as well as guardian ad litem Amy Mitchell and private guardian ad litem Allison LeBray, as well as psychologist Dr. Kyle Hancock, have created one of these dark mechanisms, or a part of one of these dark mechanisms. It's similar to what has happened in Missouri 3 years ago. If you Google 31 judges recuse themselves, you'll be able to find another report about the same dark mechanism. But what happened in this situation is that Commissioner Russell Manasse, who had already covered up a forgery committed by an attorney named Nate Wall in Cottonwood Heights, that Unified Police Chief Justin Hoyle, Wayne Dial, as well as District Attorney Sim Gill also covered up, as well as Judge Pettit. They were all desperate to see this silenced, and so Commissioner Russell Manasse created this ruse, or engaged in this ruse, this dark scheme of ordering Amy Mitchell to be the guardian ad litem, then demanded Allison LeBray, and then demanded that Kyle Hancock be the psychologist. And along that way, Kyle Hancock's office quoted someone that the psych eval would cost $2,000, and that would be covered by Select Health insurance. Select Health's insurance provided by Intermountain Healthcare. But then when Dr. Kyle Hancock's office found out that this was coming through this dark network of these AFCC net people, they called the person and said that it wouldn't be covered by insurance, that they had to pay cash. And then it was later discovered that the psychological evaluation wasn't going to just cost $2,000 now that it was being paid for by cash. It was going to be run up to cost substantially more than that. And so not only is that extortion and treason for all of them, but you can see how this is done, and then through many mechanisms there's kickbacks that can happen. These terrors happen because these dark networks of imposters, and there are hundreds of thousands of them, they intentionally instigate these things. They instigate divorces. That's why there's 800,000 divorces every year in America. They instigate these terrors. That's why there's 50,000 suicides every year in America. This is why in Utah has the highest rates of teen suicide and adult suicide in the nation. These terrors are also why there are so many military veterans committing suicide. More than 22 a day are allowed to commit suicide, and that is unacceptable. The good news is that Select Health Insurance and Intermountain Healthcare is going to start investigating this. This should be the domino effect that starts to dismantle these dark networks, not only just here in Utah, but from coast to coast, because it is extortion. And because it is extortion and treason, it's also an indication of all the other dark patterns of the profiteering off pain, profiteering off creating chaos rather than implementing solutions. And there is so much more. This includes more dark details about this, as well as collection schemes, corrupt police departments, imposters betting on what parents and children they can get to commit suicide, other billion-dollar schemes, and many more names to be named in Utah and across the country.